Hello there survivors and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today I'm going to show you how to build this golden mountain temple that I built with the golden Dynasty Eastern cosmetics. If you don't have these cosmetics yet, if you head over right when this video is first posted, I'm doing some giveaways for some free keys that you could get, and then you can use these amazing cosmetics. They have a lot of detail, but if you plan on building in this style or you like this style, I can definitely say it's well worth it, because besides an amazing amount of structures for your builds, there's also a lot of skins for all of your utilities, turning in your forges, steam forges, replicators, transmitters, you name it, into cool and themed structures instead, which is definitely a really nice aesthetic if you want to, really transform yourself whilst playing ARK. But if you want to build this without any cosmetics, as you can see, I've done some other builds in a similar style without any cosmetics, without any mods, just using the normal structures like stone, painting that blue or greenish. You can just use the wood and the frontier skin instead, or even just painting adobe white to get a really cool effect. So the tutorial will be focused on if you're going to skin it to those dynasty skins, but instead you could do for the large wall sections, as I've done here, maybe have a steampunk wall at the bottom or a stone wall at the bottom, then have a little layer of wood, and then some painted white adobe for some really cool walls as well. So there is definitely a way to get this build done without needing any mods, but you'll have to use a little bit of creative license. You can of course use my previous builds as a little bit of inspiration how to do it and what kind of windows to add, so you still have some light. But as you can see, I have done some builds, and there is tutorials for those builds available as well if you want to try that or use that as inspiration, because they go together quite well, but the skins just make your life a little bit easier. And as always, of course, if you enjoy seeing these build tutorials in ARK, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. And as pretty much always, we want to start with the foundations. We want to go with a 4 wide one right here in the middle. Then we go in and we'll have 3 here on the outside, and the same thing on the other side, 3 there on the outside. Then actually what you want to do is make sure that this goes in by 2 before we bring it out by 4 over here. So we're counting the outsides. This is 4, this is 2, and then this is actually going to be 4 wide as well. So that's 4. Then we can bring this back in, which should also be 4. So that means we're going out here again. We bring this out by 2 in total, so make sure it goes out by 2. And then this section here is going to be 10 long. So just going across until it's 10. That should line up with the other side we've done. Again, this needs to be 2. Then we bring this out by 4. It's going to be 4 across. Bringing this back in until over here, and it should line up perfectly all the way around it. So we have a little bit of an interesting thing going on here at the front, and the rest of it is pretty similar. And we can of course start to fill in the entirety of the foundation to make sure that we have all the support that we need and that we can start building. So yeah, you just want to go around and add in all of the foundations. Quite simple, just like that. And then of course the last little section here at the front, filling all of them in. There we go. Alright, then it's time to take out our stone walls, and we want to basically go around the entirety of the foundation and raise it up by 2, because this is actually going to be a raised up build, because that looks a little bit nicer for what we're going after. But of course, if you want to utilize the space underneath, you can easily add a staircase into it and use this as a basement for your storage or whatever you want to use it for. And of course, you can raise it up if you want it to be higher, because maybe you want to make sure that you can park some dinos in here. Then making it 3 high could be a good one, so you can have some gateways going into there, of course, but that is totally up to you. But we'll at least want to make it 2 higher then the foundation, just so that it stands on a nice base of stone, which is kind of what we like for this build. So we'll just go around all the sides, fill in the walls too high, and there we go. So right now, this is the basic shape that we have going on. We want to do a few additions. First of all, we're going to go along this side. That's going to get a balcony right there. So we want to make sure that we have those placed right here as well. And then right here on the front, we're going to make some changes as well. We're going to have these stick out by one. Then this we can fill in all the way through. And we can have these three too. So that's basically going to be the landing. And then we have two balconies to the side of our building. To get started with this, we want to take out our stone stairs. And we can actually go and bring them down as far as we can. For now, that probably only those two. We can do the same thing for these sections. Bring down these stairs as far as we can. Those should mostly go all the way down. So we'll start doing that for this section here too. Again, almost everything we should be able to place. And then of course we want to start filling in these sides. So first of all, we're going to have a wall coming down right there, which means we can also have a pillar right along the side of that one. And then we can start filling in the remaining part of this. So we want to just follow the shape of these stairs. We should also be able to place the last stair now. And yeah, you might or might not be able to place the last slope wall. You have admin commands of your course. You can always ghost and place it there, but otherwise it kind of depends on your landscape whether or not you can do this. Same thing here on the other side, of course, of the building. It's going to be the same principle, starting to place these walls in where we can, ending in the slope walls, and very importantly, ending in the stone pillar right there so that we can place the last bit of the staircase right over there. And then again, if your landscape allows it, you can place the slope walls, otherwise you can leave it out. And then there's a few more things, of course, that we want to do. First of all, we want to bring out the pillars for these corners here as well to get some extra support in there. Just like that. Should extend the support that we have so that we can have the staircase go all the way to the end. And then of course here we want to place in some of our walls, slope walls and normal walls along the side of the staircase. Of course we can have our slope walls, maybe or maybe you can't place the last one. Again, that will be down to your landscape and settings. And then we can fill in this section over here too, just like that. So then we almost have the grand staircase up to the entrance done. First of all, we want to add in some railings around these pieces just like this, and of course bring the railings down the staircase as well. That's a nice bit of extra detail. So we'll have them going on along the sides over here. Sometimes it might or might not let you actually place them on the last bits, but we'll do them wherever we can. And then to add some extra details, we can actually have some half pillars here, because especially with those golden dynasty skins, you can turn them into some really cool looking details. We then want to take out our pillars again. We want to have one pillar here at that end. Then we'll have a pillar right over here. The same thing over here in this corner. But we also want to add one over there. And just in case you're going to use the inside, you probably also want one over there as well. Then we'll have one here over this corner. And basically at the back of the building, at least, we can add them around everywhere in every corner. So one over here. And just continuing that all the way around. And then of course here at the front again, it's going to be slightly different with this balcony that's coming up. But we at least want to add them in the corners just like that. And then for this balcony, we can actually bring out our walls again as well, so that we can fill this entire section in too, just like so. And of course, that also counts for the other side. We want to make sure that this is completely filled in so that we can't look in on the inside. And then to spice up these sides, we also want to have a pillar right there in the middle. Same thing, of course, goes for the other side. And then we can have some half pillars on these two. Same thing over here, of course. And then we can take out the railings again and make sure that we have some railings for those balcony sections on both sides of the building. There we go. And if you really wanted to, of course, you could also add them here at the back. But for my design, I've only used them here at the front. Well, then it's time to get started, of course, on the rest. First of all, we want to make sure that we add the gateway right here. And of course, the gate itself, that's going to be the huge entrance to the base, which also allows you to bring in some of the tames that can fit through a gate like this. Then we also want to take out our wooden beams, and we can actually go around the entire shape of the building. Actually, we want to leave that one out because that's one, it's going to be a door. We can then just start following around the entirety of the base that we've just made, because again, the base mostly is just to raise up the building, which will make it look a lot nicer. But you can of course always use this as an extra storage room, because we have a decent amount of space underneath here. But for now, we'll just follow it all the way along until we've gone all the way around and met up back at the gate. Then it's time to take out our wooden pillars again. We want to start right here by adding a pillar that is 4 high, then a gap of 3 and another pillar, and then the same thing over here, of course, just to get this main building shaped up. Then over here, we want to leave the gap of 2, add in the pillars 4 high, gap of 4, another pillar, and another pillar right over there. Same thing, of course, here on the other side. Again, all of these pillars are still 4 high in total. And then here at the back of the build, we actually want them every other 2 or every 2, just as some nice supports and to break up the walls that we'll be building. Then for these sections on the side, every 2, we want to actually have a pillar that is 3 high, so slightly lower. And just like this. Again, this is basically giving some shape to the building that we're about to make. And I always find that very helpful, kind of building out a skeleton for us to work with and to fill in. All right, then it's time to take out our ceilings, of course, and to start filling in the inside of this base and try to not misplace them. And again, if you want to utilize the space underneath, definitely at some point add in a nice little staircase so you can get there to drop off your stuff, etc. But for now, we will just focus on filling the entirety of the base in so that we can start working on the actual main building itself. There we go. That's about half done. Let's do the other side here too. Just filling it in with the ceilings all the way round. There we go. And then of course this last section on the side. Just like that. And then we have our new area to work with. So as I said before, there's definitely ways to make this building look nice with the vanilla structures. Basically what I would do for the main part is have a stone base layer at the bottom, maybe skin it with the steampunk skin, and then the walls above it either be made out of wood or maybe painted adobe, painted white, to go to similar styles as some of the other buildings that I've designed. Then the sides I would actually make totally out of wood, having maybe frontier wood or normal orientation of wood at the bottom, and then flipping around the wood for the second layers. And of course you would have to work in some windows in there as well. But for the tutorial, as I said before, it's mostly focused on how to replicate the building that I've made. And that is, of course, using these Golden Dynasty Eastern cosmetics. Which makes life a little bit easier because we kind of just need to fill in these walls up to the height all the way round just like that. And the same thing here on the other side. So we just want to fill them all in. And we actually want to do the same thing here on the end of the building. And of course, here on the other side of the building, we want to do the exact same thing. So we start off with just filling in all of these walls around this side building, because that's like two smaller side buildings which are pretty much exactly the same building wise. There we go. And of course, here in the middle, what we want to do is start by placing down two walls, having some quarter walls along the side, and then we can of course add in a door there in the middle. And above it, for now, we'll just fill it up to 3 high, so the same as these walls we've used on the outside. Then here on this side of the building, of course, we want to do the same thing. So we start by adding in the walls on the side, adding in these quarter walls, and then of course getting in the doorway right there in the middle, and then above it again filling in the rest of the wall just like that. And we can of course also make sure that we add in the actual doors to those side bits. Then we can get started with these roofs, and we actually want to take out our ramps. Just go around like this, also go around the front over here or the side, and then of course go along the back here too. We also want to take out our corners, take out our ramp corners, make sure we connect them just like this so that we have that nice rounded corner roof basically going around this section. Then we can have one more layer of ramps going up for the main section here, following the shape of the building just like that. We can then of course change all the way to normal roofs again, because above this there's going to be a layer of normal roofs just meeting in the middle, basically going a little bit steeper, so there's a little bit of a nice curve going on there. We actually want to also add in 2 right here and 2 right there, so we get a little overhang, and then 2 ramps over there and over here. So again, we create a little bit of an overhang going on. Now with the Golden Dynasty skins, what you actually also might want to do is add in some of these slope walls, because you can turn them into extra support beams underneath the roofs. It's quite a cool little detail, so definitely a thing worth considering. But of course that only works with those cosmetics, although if you make them out of wood, you could of course also just use this as a little bit of a support system underneath this. Then here at the top we also want to add in a few details. First of all, we want to make sure that we have some railings going across just like that, and we want to make sure that we have a pillar or half pillar right there at the end, so we can turn that into some nice details. Then of course here on the inside we also need to fill in the walls, so we have some of the shallow slope walls there. We can connect those with some quarter walls all the way through, and then some normal slope walls right there in the middle. Of course we also need to fill in the rest of this, so we want to have a pillar right there, and we can actually have a pillar in the middle, and then a half pillar right over there to complete that wall. So that's that section pretty much complete. What we also want to do is fill in this section in here. So once again, have those slope walls. We'll have the quarter walls there, and then the shallow slope walls right to those sides. So we're going to also fill in these walls over here. So first of all, taking out our ramps, of course, going around the building just like this to get that shape right again, all the way round. And then of course we want to also place in the corner pieces again for this first layer, and then we can take out our ramps again, because we're going to go for another layer to create those separate roof layers, which is quite a nice addition. And then of course, changing back to the normal roofs, to create a little bit of that curve going into the building, which is definitely one of the nice details for this type of build. We want to have those quarter roofs and then of course the quarter ramps as well, just to get that overhang in a little bit more. Then here on top, of course, we want to take out our railings again, add 4 of those along the top here, add in a little half pillar right there on the end as a little bit of detail, and then we are pretty much there again. Of course, once more, if you want to have the supports, you can have some shallow walls underneath them going all the way around, because they can be turned into supports with the Golden Dynasty skins. And we love some good details, but even if you build them out of wood, I think with vanilla structures it would also look quite nice. Then of course we want to fill in these here, so we want to use our shallow walls. We can actually do both sides right away. We can make sure that we fill in these bigger slope walls as well, and of course add in our quarter walls down there, and the same thing on the inner wall over here. There we go, and that gives us the 2 side additions to our build. Well, then it's time to get started on the middle section here. Again, if we're just using these skins, we can just kind of fill in the walls just like this around the main entrance here. There we go, and just go all the way around, adding the walls in. Here on the side, of course, we want to at least add in the doors to the balconies that we've got going on, and we might as well make sure that we add in the doors right away. There we go, 1 door here, 1 door there, and then we can fill in these walls to be 4 high too, just like that. Same over here. There we go. Then back here we can fill in the walls going up to the pillars, up to these pillars, and then the back wall, again, very simple if you're using these skins, because all the details are in using the different variants of the skins and then, you know, playing around with those, which makes it a little bit easier to build these structures, although you'll be finicking around with getting your favorite combination of skins, because there's so many so many to choose from nowadays. You have loads of options there. There we go. So yeah, we have the main room completed. Then we want to take out our roofs, and we actually want to change it to the ramps. We want to go around just like that over here. Then along the front, of course, we can just go across from one side to the other. Then over here again, you can make sure that it ends just before we collide. Same thing over here, and then go all the way across the back here too, just like that. And then of course fill in these sections. Then we can definitely also fill in these corners, of course, to round off that section of the roof. And we'll do the same thing over there and the same thing over here, and it's already getting together now. Then we still take out our ramps. We want to go up by 3 from both sides, just like this. So there's 2 left right there in the middle. And we want to make these sections 2 wide. So on this section as well, 2 wide. And we also want to go with 1 layer across from one side to the next. And then, of course, these 2 at the end are the ones that we want to bring up again. Same thing here on the other side of the build. We can bring these up just like so, and bring the bottom section here across to the other side. Then we want to switch to the normal roofs. Add 2 over here, 2 over there. Same thing on the other side. This will get the shape in quite nicely, as you can see. Then we also want to take out some quarters, so we want to have our quarter roofs first, again creating a little bit of an overhang here for these sides, So we want to do the same thing here on the other side of the building, switching to our quarter ramps, adding those in along the edge as well. Again, creating that little overhang here on the side of the building. Just looks a lot nicer that way. There we go. And of course, same thing on both sides. So we want to just carefully place all of these in. And then again, here on this side, just following along like that. And then here at the end, of course, we want to add in that little detail of the pillar at the end. And we want to take out our railings, add 2 of them here. And 2 of them right over there as well to, yeah, get some detail into this layer of the build. All right, then on this layer, we can actually start filling in a new layer of ceilings because, of course, this is where we will be adding a part of a new build, and it will also just help you with getting around, you know, having another layer to land on. We then want to bring the middle 2 here to the sides, just like this. And then, of course, we still not want to fill in these side walls because we definitely haven't done so yet. We want to have the normal slope walls here at the top layer just before those quarter pieces of the roof, so that you still keep the overhang on the side. Then we can pick out our shallow slope walls. We can add 3 of them in going down the slope just like that. We want, of course, do this for both sides of the building to make it a little bit easier. There we go. Same thing over here on the other side. And as well, we can also add them here along the bottom because, of course, they can be turned into some details with the Dynasty skin. But if you use wooden ones, you can definitely also just use them as details, even if you're building out of vanilla structures. And there we go, all the way around on the front. But of course, same thing here on the other side. It might be a little bit tricky to do this in survival, you know, to get here. But yeah, it just adds a little bit of extra detail all the way around. And the last few over here, and there we go. That's all done. Then we can continue filling in the rest of this wall. It's fairly simple. We kind of just want to follow the shape that is already available. First of all, we'll take out our quarter walls, and at this section we want to have 2 over here, 2 over there. And of course, we can then make sure that we do the same thing on both sides. We can have the shallow wall right underneath that, so that that all follows the same shape. And then, of course, it means that we can have the full shallow walls or full slope walls right over there. There we go. Already fills in the bottom section of these walls. Then we can have a full wall on both sides there, and 2 full walls right there in the middle, filling in these last sections with some quarter walls on both ends. And there we go, we have this wall filled in. Then if we take a look at the other wall, we see everything down here is already done, so we can just take out our walls, fill in these sections just like this, and the little corners around the sides. And of course, we want to make sure that we add in our pillar in the middle there, just like that. Alright, and then on this layer, we can actually fill in these front corners with ceilings all the way through, just like that. But then here on this side, only those 2, so that we can still have a staircase going down in these corners, because of course we'll need to get up and down. So we can actually bring down our staircase by 2 on both sides. There we go. And then at the end, we want to, of course, have a ceiling. There we go. We can then have our stairs again. They're just about going to miss the final layer. So what we want to do instead is have some triangle stairs for that final little bit making it meet back up. The only downside of that is that if you want to have a railing, it means that we won't be able to do the last section unless you of course can do some overlapping, because then you can continue it. But otherwise, unfortunately, right now these pieces don't snap to the stairs yet. As soon as they fix that, maybe we'll be able to do that. But otherwise, you know, you can just leave out that last one and maybe add like a little pillar there for a little bit of detail at the end. And then we'll fill these in. And then you kind of only want to fill this in because if you do the second one, you could, but of course it's going to be slightly visible from the outside. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, then we have the access way up to the second layer here, because of course we have now the downstairs, and then you can use the stairs to get up to the next layer. And then speaking of the next layer, we're going to take out our wooden pillars. We're going to add 2 right there on each of these corners, just like that. And we actually also want to make sure that we add a few extra ones just as nice extra details. So you want to fill those in. Then we can take out the walls and we can just fill out the walls around the side of the build, just like that for both sides. Same thing over here. There we go. So both of those are completely filled in. And then of course we need to fill in these side walls. So we want to start with our shallow slope walls just to follow the shape of the roof. And we can of course do that on both sides, just like this. And then have some slope walls connected to that part of the roof, building that all up. And then of course we can fill in the walls there and have some quarter walls to fill in those little gaps below. And of course the same thing will go for this side, filling in the quarter walls and all full walls. And there we go. That's a start for this next layer. Then of course we want to take out our ramps again. We're going to have 2 right here on these sides, and then we can go all the way along the front layer here. Same over here. Just going around like this all the way. And then of course adding in our corner piece for both of those angles. And we can actually also add in the corner pieces right there to kind of smooth that out. Filling in these corners. There we go. And of course over here along the side as well, just to smooth that out a bit. Alright, for the next layer we want to take out our ceilings again, and we want to start by going all the way around the outside of this layer. So just want to follow all the way along. There we go. Until we've gone all the way around. And then what we want to do is make sure to keep these 2 open, and we can fill in the rest. So that's at the back of the building, and we can just fill in the rest of this layer. Then we can take out our pillars. We can have some on each of these places. So every 2, we're basically adding in a little pillar all the way around the build. And we can also add in our railings, because there's going to be a little balcony here where we can walk all the way around the entire build that we have. And of course this would be a great place to park a flyer or 2, so they are safely landed and you can instantly access your base. So there we go. That is the beginning of this layer. And of course what we can actually also do again is adding in some supports underneath these roof around this little balcony, just as the extra details, of course, what we've been doing. So we want to just add them wherever we can before we move on to the rest of this section, because we're definitely getting close to having the whole build done and having a nice temple to use as your base. So for this next layer, we want to take out our wooden pillars again. We want to have 2 over here, We want to have 2 over there. Leave this middle open. But then here, we want to have 2 in the middle. 2 there. 2 here. And 2 over these places as well. Here in the middle, we can actually add in some stairs. So we can easily get up here. So stairs coming down like that. And of course, we want to have some railings around them. You could potentially even have, of course, some pillars at the end of that. Same thing over here. We'll have some railings around it. And then we can just kind of fill in the walls for this section too. So we just want to go around, fill them in all the way until we've made it to the front. Actually, here at the front, we want to not fill in these bottom ones. We want to take out the quarter walls and actually add in a nice double door right there in the middle. So you can get to that balcony. And then, of course, fill in that final wall on this side too. So there we go. That's the start of this layer. Then we can take out our ramps again. And we can start by going across the front. We can go across the side over here. Same thing over here on this side. Just like that. All the way round until we meet back up at the front. We can then, of course, place in the corners for all of those, just to make sure that this goes fully around the place. There we go. And then we can take out our full roofs and we can just have the roofs meet in the middle, of course. So it's a little bit of a steeper roof sections. We want to do that for both ends of the roof, and then we want to fill in the bottom layer. We'll leave the top 2 open for now, just like that. We want to take our quarter pieces, of course, add the little overhang around the outside, and the same thing here over on the other side of the roof. Of course, we also want to make sure that we have the overhang there. Then here in the middle, this is only applicable if you're using the Dynasty skins. Otherwise, you just want to fill in the roof like normal. But with these skins, we can actually do something pretty cool. So what we'll do is make a little shape like this with a quarter roof, so that we have one ceiling-sized gap here in the middle, basically. Then we want to take out all pillars and place them on each of these corners, just like that. Add in the walls all the way around, and then add in a ceiling on top, and that is it, because we can actually turn those ceilings in some pretty cool roofs. And of course, if you want to have the extra supports also for this layer, we can go around adding them in underneath the edge of the roof. There we go. All the way around everywhere, just like that. And of course, here along the top, we can have some half pillars at the end, and we can have a railing there and a railing there to finish that roof. Then we're almost done, of course. We just need to fill in these walls on the side. So first of all, taking out our slope walls, we can start filling these sections in. Just following the shape of the roof quite simply, and of course adding in 2 walls there. We can do the same 2 walls over here and actually continue the pillar going all the way up. We'll do that on both sides, of course, and yeah, there we go. And then, of course, it becomes time to start skinning or start painting all of it to make it look nice, or a combination of both. For this, I've actually painted the pagoda structures, the pillars, for example, into a red color. I think I used gore for this, as well as the wooden region on these wooden walls at the top. So to kind of get a little bit of that red going in there, which I really liked. And then I've actually used a combination of the golden skins, of course, with all these golden accents everywhere, and just the the normal wooden pillars, for example, the normal pagoda set, because in the skin pack there's basically pagoda structures and you have the golden pagoda structures, and you can play around with that, like the amount of golden details you'd like to have for yourself. You can see them here, but then for example on this side, this is just the normal pagoda structures without any added gold. But yeah, these are all just wall variants, so this is just a wall, but as you can see it acts like a window because there's open gaps in there to let in some light, basically following a similar pattern for both the smaller side building as well as these middle buildings. And you can of course just interact with it. We have a nice golden beam going across the bottom. We have all these roofs, of course, which look absolutely amazing. And then the railings that we have, I've used the golden variant again to get in some of these golden details along the roof, as well as here for these pillars at the end. And that's basically how you want to go along and skin all of these sections to get these amazing, lovely amounts of details. And you can see here I've used actually the golden pillars as well as the golden structures in the middle, even a nice golden roof for that ceiling. And that really transforms your temple into something that goes from quite simple to something really, really cool, because there's so many awesome details in these skins. You can also see that we've changed the gateway and the gate into something a little bit more round, which I think really breaks up the structure by a ton. And here on the outside, we have actually used some of those normal building structures, the stone ruined structures, to get a little bit of a stronger foundation. I really like some of these mossy bits coming in as well randomly, because just adds a lot of character to the place. On the inside, I've kept it very simple. So in the middle, you can see there's room for your tames, which is of course quite nice, as well as, you know, a little bit of the storage, your cryos, etc. We have the balconies on the side, of course. These side rooms, you can have some storage in them. There's actually a lot of skins for a lot of the different utility stations, which is amazing. There's some statues around. Some of the statues are just from the Golden Dynasty, but there's also some statues like these awesome ones in the garden that are from the free sculpture cosmetic. Definitely a nice one, not just for your fantasy or Japanese themed builds, but there's also just some other cool statues in there, like a shark, that you could definitely use in any build, which is always a great little detail to add. And then on the inside, yeah, we have the side rooms, of course, for storage, etc. We can go up with this staircase all the way to this middle section where you have another decent amount of space for maybe some crafting, etc. And then all the way at the top, in my case, I've built a shrine, but you might want to have like your bedroom or something here instead. But you can definitely get some really cool builds going with these cosmetics. And if you want to do the rest of the compound as well, it's quite simple. It's just a gateway and a gate with the wall skins, which is really nice, and then a nice gateway for that too. To make it a little bit easier to place on uneven terrain, all I did is have some ceilings and pillars, and then of course filling in the walls so you can't see through it underneath them, so that those gateways stay on the same level to get a nice compound that you can use in front of your base, which of course gives you a lot of free space and safe space for some more of your tames. And there we go, that is it for today's build tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below.